What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and here we are, only this and one more video left until I get rid of the stupid headsets and I get my regular microphone back. So bear with me just for two more. But what is interesting today is we're going to be talking about the biggest Pokemon movers and shakers on TCG Player as we do every single Sunday. And as I always say, I love this information. This is behind the curtains look at the biggest and baddest buying and selling space outside of eBay, which is TCG Player. And to be honest with you, at some point they will do some type of merging. I think they'll always operate as independent sites, but eBay did purchase TCG Player because they want to make sure that they have a foothold on the TCG buying and selling side of seeing things outside of just their auction site. So eBay is making big moves, and that kind of flies under the radar a bit. But again, eBay does love TCG Player. So whenever I can get information from either of those sites, again, we're talking high level macro movers. Like, this is the stuff that's actually happening in the hobby, not just what we talk about or think about or people are influencing on. Like, this is the black and white moves that are happening. And I absolutely love being able to bring this information to you every single Sunday. And that's what we're going to do today. And now, as I just said, we do this every Sunday. We've been doing it for a while and we have no signs of slowing down. So if you think this type of view is really cool, hit that subscribe button so you can always check it out. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And yeah, if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. We got a small channel. Those three small things go a really long way in helping us out. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So before we actually get into it, I wanted to show you all a brilliant example of a support line and a buyout line and all kinds of stuff, because this card, this Gengar and Mimikyu GX card, which is from Team Up, which is a fantastic set. Nobody could argue that. Short printed booster boxes are going for thousands of dollars at this point, right? Like, the Lovebirds card is right up there with the Moonbryon. Everything is right about this set. And so this card, which is Gengar, is a wildly popular Pokemon, right? This card has been on this list a couple times over the last 6 weeks, and it was on it for a couple different reasons. So if you look, this graph right here represents how the price has moved over the last year. But those light blue vertical lines that go up and down, those represent the buying or the buying volume, excuse me. So what you'll see here, and what I thought was really cool, is we talk about support lines a lot. We talk about resistance lines a lot, right? We use that as a way to kind of gauge how the market is viewing different Pokemon cards. And as you can see, in June of 2024, this price absolutely shot through the roof, right? It was very well supported at $50 all the way really from, I don't know, probably April, May, June. And then in the beginning of June, it absolutely shot up. But if you see that light blue line right there, look what happened. The blue line shoots up. So that was what we see on TCG Player from time to time. My guess would be that was somebody simply saying, listen, Gengar is a wildly popular Pokemon. Team Up is an incredibly rare, wildly popular set. This card's sitting at $50. I'm going to buy it out. I'm going to buy all of them that I can, try and drive the prices up, and see if I can't sell some and make a profit. So what happened? The price held for a little while, right? But then it has been working its way down ever since, because no matter what that person thought, the market still views it as a $50 card. So as you can see here on the right, where I have that flat green line and the green arrow up, you will see that we've started to flatten out again right at where it was before the buyout. Now, that is not always the case. This is a pretty cool, unique example, but sometimes we see the buyout happen and then we see it drop, but then find resistance at a higher price point from previous, and that's when it's kind of a win for whoever did the buyout. But in this example right here, bought it at 50, shot it up, probably had some pretty good sales while it was working its way down, made a little bit of coin, but now the card is right back where it was before as a $50 card. Now, even though it's at $50, guess what? It is still up 56% from where it started the year off, but I'm telling you right now, I think this card and Team Up is super special. I know it's not the rarest card, the rarest Gengar card from the Team Up set, but I do think that it's a really cool card, and I love to see that it has been holding that $50 line. I feel very, very strongly that there's a ton of support at the $50 mark. So if you're looking for a low-risk way to go ahead and get this awesome card in your collection, $50 seems right where the market is valuing it, at least for right now. Sticking with the Gengar theme, Mortys Conviction. Look at how this card has performed over the last couple weeks. And what's interesting, I'm not sure how many of all of you remember this, but when Mortys Conviction came out, like, this thing spiked to $100 card for absolutely no reason. I think there was this mentality that because it had Gengar on it, like, this might be the Gengar card, right? And Gengar sets, if you go back throughout the history, of Pokemon sets, Gengar sets perform really, really well. And I don't know what it is. You think about all of the different Gengar Gengar sets, and they just perform well. They do. The booster boxes do well. The chase cards do well. And so I think that got a lot of people excited. But this is not, in my mind, a Gengar card, even though you got Gengar on there. It's Mortys Conviction. So after that hype where the card spiked all the way up, it started to settle quite a bit. And it settled in, there you see it like $32, $33, $34 range. And over the last couple weeks, it's been shooting its way back up. So over the last month, it's up about 1%. But if you look at how it's moved from $8.29 till now, it's gone from about $32, $33 all the way up to $35.83. So a lot of momentum here. But if you look at the tail on the far right, it is starting to flatten out a little bit. So I don't know if it's going to be able to hold that $35, $36 mark. All I can tell you is that TCG Player raised their hand and say, hey, listen, everybody, you might want to pay attention because the buying selling action on Mortys Conviction has been really, really hot from a price perspective over the last week. So here we are talking about it, and I do love the card. I'm a huge Gengar fan, right? So I love the card, so I'll buy it. I certainly don't love it enough to pay too much of a premium simply because it's got the picture of Gengar on it. So with that out of the way, we're getting into another card from Shrouded Fable, and this is an interesting one. We have seen Shrouded Fable come out, and a lot of stuff is already being discounted. It is not an exaggeration to say that not a lot of people love the Shrouded Fable set. I think there's some really cool cards in it from a gameplay perspective, but from a collectability and from an investability standpoint, I will be the first one to tell you that I certainly don't view it as what I think would be a big gainer in the long run, right? But this Petrant card right here, it has gone up 44.9%, almost 45% since the set came out, right? It was sitting there in the $14, $15 range, and it's all the way up to $22.46. Now, gold cards as a whole over the long run don't have a tendency of holding a ton of value. This is a set where mostly gameplay is driving a lot of these price gains, right? You look at the most expensive card in that set right now, which is Earthen Vessel, right? Obviously, Earthen Vessel is driven by play. You've got Cassiopeia coming in at number 2, and that Cassiopeia card is already down in the $50 range. And when you look at the lineup of trainers from the whole Scarlet and Violet era, as much as I love that Cassiopeia card, as much as I can relate to it, it's got Sylveon in the background. She's hammering on a computer, like all of that vibes with me. But at the end of the day, it is not going to be one of the best trainers, right? I love the trainers from Twilight Masquerade better. I certainly love the Iono card better. So, this one is going to be fighting for. And actually, matter of fact, I actually like the trainer so far from Surging Sparks better, too. So the trainer card's not going to do great. I think once these cards rotate out, the whole set in general isn't going to do great. But at least for now, this Petrant card has shown a lot of promise, and it has gone up to $22.46. Now, in the video on Friday, we went through 151. We went through the cards from Pokemon 151 that have gained the most prices over the last 6 months. And it was a really cool dive into just the depth and the beauty of the set as a whole. And the last 2 cards on here, again, this comes from TCG Player, so they're the ones calling this out. But the last 2 cards on this list are from 151. But my PikaPikaPaPa view goes beyond just the last week, beyond just the last month. When I look at this Ivysaur card over the last year, we talk about how 151 cards have these strong support lines, but also a lot of them have really strong resistance lines as well. But what we're starting to see is these 151 cards kind of breaking above their 1-year high, or at least really testing these resistance lines. And if you see this Ivysaur right here, it's only a $23 card, but it is way up at its 1-year high, and it has had some pretty significant spikes along the way. Now, the market likes round numbers. I don't know if it's going to find support and it's going to kind of level off right at the $25 range. That seems to be these intervals, right? Like a $100 card seems to flutter at the $100 mark before it breaks out, and then for whatever reason it'll hit 125, 150. Like that's just how markets tend to work. It's a very odd thing. It has nothing to do with any logic behind it, but it's just the kind of like the psychological part of collecting. So it'll be interesting. I think this one is going to hover around the $25 price point for a long run, and we'll have to see if it has the ability to really break out further down the road. But TCG Player said, hey, listen, this card's been on fire over the last week, and I looked at it from the 1 year, and I said it hasn't just been on fire over the last week. It's up 75% over the last year, and it's testing new all-time highs. So I thought that was a really cool thing to call out. And then another example right here is the Charizard EX. Of course, the big chase card. It is down 4.6% over the last year, but remember, that was when the card first came out. So the Pokemon pop and flop, the fact that it is only down 5% versus the original price when it launched is absolutely awesome. It just talks to how awesome the set is, how great the set is, how high the demand is. I mean, this Charizard card never has dropped below $100. Look at the last year. It has flirted with the $100 mark, but it has never dropped below $100. $100, and it has almost always been over the $110 mark. Now, if you look from June of 2024 till now, is when it's really started to kind of stair step its way up, and you'll see that it keeps hitting these kind of resistance lines, then it comes down, then a new resistance line, it comes down, but those resistance lines are getting progressively higher, and you'll see the most recent one that happened a couple weeks ago. It did come down, but it certainly didn't come down much, right? When you look at these peaks and valleys, it had a tendency to peak and then pretty sharply drop down, but the last peak only saw a nominal drop afterwards. So that just goes to show me that people are starting to think this is a $120 card, $130 card. I mean, let's be honest, in the long run, this is going to be the chase card of 151. It has an incredibly low gem rate, which means it is very hard to get in a PSA 10 gem mint holder, which means there is always going to be a higher level of demand for the raw cards, because everybody out there has this vision of buying cards on eBay raw, sending them in, getting this really rare PSA 10, and multiplying the value of the card. The reality is it's much harder to do than people think it is, but still that helps drive raw card prices, right? And of course, rare PSA 10s of awesome cards like Charizard, especially from a set like 151, card's going to do great in the long run. And I do think we'll hit a point some point in the future where we're looking back and we're like, oh my God, do you remember back in 2024 when we could buy this card for $125? I certainly don't know what the ceiling is, but it's got all of the intangibles. Awesome set, awesome card, awesome artwork, really low gem rate, checks all the boxes to be a really strong performer far into the future. So there it is. This is our movers and shakers for the week. And as I said, we do this every week. So if this kind of video gets you excited, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And if you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.